Hi, it's me who says unto you, blessed are they who find joy in the Lord and his teachings, for they shall receive great rewards. I asked a Jesus chatbot how I should start this video, and that's what it said. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Justice, and something I'll occasionally do on this channel is make fun of Christian media, which is usually pretty easy because most Christian content centers around a Christian main character who struggles in the modern progressive world where it seems fewer and fewer people share their beliefs.
If I'm not true to what the Bible says about homosexuality, it's like not warning people about a faulty elevator before they step onto it.
Which means that the message of most Christian media can pretty easily be boiled down to,
you better stop being gay and using drugs and start accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, otherwise you're gonna burn in hell.
But in the past couple years, a series called The Chosen about Jesus and his disciples has become really popular, not just by Christian media standards, but in general. They're playing episodes of it in theaters, Ben Shapiro and Joe Rogan are talking about it. And this was all surprising to me because Christian media usually has a limit on how popular it can be, because it's usually so objectively bad and preachy that it struggles to find an audience outside of devout Christians who think they'll go to hell if they watch anything else. But this series seemed to be exceeding that popularity limit. And then my curiosity was further piqued when I found out this show's creator, Dallas Jenkins, also directed The Resurrection of Gavin Stone, a Christian rom-com I looked at in a previous video. Now that movie was painfully mediocre and nobody saw it, so I was also surprised someone could go from directing that to creating a series so popular. My curiosity was too high at this point. I decided I had to watch this show with the intention of making a video about how terrible and overrated it is. So I downloaded their app, which is basically just a streaming service for this one show, and I started watching. And then
the funniest thing happened.
I unironically really enjoyed this show and ended up watching all 3 seasons in like 2 days. So let's unpack all that. Now I wish I could title this video Atheist Reviews The Chosen, because I feel that'd be a really striking title that'd get a lot of people's attention, but I feel I can't use it because the truth is I don't consider myself an atheist. Now, I don't follow any one specific faith, and I'm of the firm belief that institutional religion has done far more harm to humanity than good. However, I think I do believe in some higher power beyond our understanding, just not in a then God literally created Eve from Adam's rib type of way, and more of a, hey man, we're all connected by simply existing type of way. Basically, I think what I believe and what religious people believe are just different interpretations of the same thing, which is the unknowable nature of existence and the universe. Oh, I sound like a douchebag trying to hook up with you at a college party. But I still don't identify as Christian. I don't believe in the divinity of Christ, and I believe the Bible to be mostly a work of fiction. But I still feel I'm a unique voice among this show's fans because most of them seem to, take this story a little more seriously than I do.
I'm really drawn into this right now, and what I'm praying for is that somehow or other, all the folks that once they encounter him demonstrate radical amounts of humility and self-sacrifice.
So why did I enjoy this series so much that I couldn't stop watching it? Admittedly, part of it might have to do with the fact that this being a Christian series, my expectations were on the floor. And when your expectations are that low, it's pretty easy for them to get blown away. For instance, in most Christian media, the acting is bad.
Hey, Scotty. Jesus, man.
Yeah, enough with the clips from the previous movies I've covered. I'm not trying to create running jokes here. I'm not the nostalgia critic. But in contrast to that, the acting in The Chosen is pretty amazing across the board. Especially, and most importantly, Jonathan Roumie's performance as Jesus.
I am rejected by others.
I know, but not by the Messiah.
Sorry, got something in my eye. It's called a tear because I'm a little bitch. Joking, by the way, men should be able to cry. Which I have to credit because, you know when actors talk about how daunting it is to take on an already famous role? Like you'll see Austin Butler in an interview saying,
I mean, it's the biggest responsibility I've ever felt. You feel such a responsibility to him, to his family, to all the people around the world who love him so much. And So it's terrifying.
Austin's really not dropping that Elvis voice, huh? Well, any imposter syndrome they might have to deal with is probably amplified by 10 when playing Jesus, a figure that 2 billion people currently believe was a perfect person and the literal son of God. But in my opinion, roumie pretty much lives up to those expectations. You get the feeling watching his Jesus that he would never do anything wrong, has all the right answers, and is charismatic enough to amass such a following. Like seriously, if this guy came up to me saying,
Follow me.
I probably would. It's funny, I think the actor is married, but if he wasn't, the popularity of this show could probably get him so much action with Christian women who are like hot for Jesus. In fact, just out of curiosity, I'm gonna go to his Instagram and look through the comments to see what we find. So these are all real comments. My favorite Jesus, there is none like you when I look in your eyes. I see love and tenderness. When I watch you, I feel his love. I feel like I'm watching Jesus, not Jonathan. You are the only actor that shows his true kindness and empathy. You're going to do amazing things this season. Can't wait. Good luck, be blessed. Always in all that you do. Love you so much. Your face cheers me up every single time I see you. Handsome, gorgeous, you've been blessed by God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This picture alone made me cry. This is the picture in question, by the way. That made you cry? These ladies aren't just down bad, they're down biblically. Hey, bringing a whole new meaning to on your knees for Christ. But even though I like his performance, I haven't quite been able to like Jonathan Roumie as a person since I saw a video of him speaking at a pro-life rally.
Compelling you forward, for one reason or another, to stand together today and fight the noblest and worthiest cause possible, which is to allow the unborn the right to enter into the world and defeat those earthly forces that wish to destroy the very evidence of them.
Just when I'm enjoying some Christian content, you gotta remind me how much oppression Christianity has historically been used to justify. I'm telling you, I'm conflicted about enjoying this show. Funny anecdote, I was watching an episode of this show with my mom, and there was a part where Jesus gave Mary a big hug, to which my mom turned to me and said, "You would never hug me like that." Like, yeah, mom, that's why he's Jesus. Kind of a high standard to hold me to, wouldn't you say? But in addition to Roumie, the rest of the performances, from the disciples to Mary, both of them, to even the little bit of Pontius Pilate that we've seen, are all believable and engaging. Additionally, in most other Christian media, any attempts at humor usually fall flat.
How do you make a tissue dance? Put a little boogie in it.
And even though The Chosen isn't a comedy, so it's rarely laugh out loud funny, there are enough comedic moments peppered throughout to make the characters feel like real people that you care about.
I've only ever heard the one sermon.
You heard the best one, anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're all so good.
And a lot of the comedic moments involve Jesus, which is refreshing to see, because in most previous on-screen depictions of Jesus, he's depicted as the most boring, monotone guy.
I came into this world to give sight to those who cannot see, and to take away sight from those who can.
But I believe that Jesus should have a little bit of personality if he was able to garner such a large following. But then again, a lot of people worship the completely uncharismatic Elon Musk, so who really knows?
I'm sorry, but at this particular time, that's looking like cap.
Another way The Chosen subverts expectations is with its representation and diversity. While some characters, including Jesus, are played by white actors when they historically shouldn't be, the majority of the cast are people of color, which is a notable improvement over most previous on-screen adaptations of the Gospels, which look like an episode of Full House in comparison. Additionally, in the way of representation, the disciple Matthew is portrayed as autistic.
Your account is there for delinquent by 40 days. At a penalty rate of 10% weekly.
6 weeks?
That's right. You're lucky to not be in jail.
Now, as a neurotypical person, I have no authority to comment on what makes for good neurodivergent representation, and I'm sure this is far from perfect given the actor isn't even autistic. But given it's here at all in a Christian show, and it doesn't seem to be like an egregiously offensive portrayal, not to mention how it adds to the complexity of Matthew's character and his difficulties connecting with others, I thought it was at least worth mentioning. And thirdly, and probably most surprising, is that season 2 introduces a gay couple. I'm just kidding! Can you imagine gay characters in a Christian show that aren't just there to be converted? That would validate their existence. Can't be having that, can we? The Chosen also stands out in comparison to other Christian media with the production value. A lot of Christian movies look cheaply made, and The Chosen doesn't. The mise-en-scène really make it feel like I'm in the ancient Middle East. The cinematography and the music is also really good. The only aspect of this series where I'm reminded it's made independently of the Hollywood system with relatively limited resources is in the lack of known actors. But all the actors are so great, and it's also kind of nice that a recognizable face like Russell Brand never shows up and takes me out of it. He'd probably be into this. He's all friends with Ben Shapiro now. Honestly, the only area where I feel The Chosen suffers from being written by Christians is that Jesus isn't allowed to have any flaws or doubts like you'd expect of a central character of a series, because that would contradict the writer's beliefs that he's all good and all-knowing. And even though Roumie's performance is still very entertaining to watch, it's weird never having to worry if the character is going to make a wrong choice. But again, I have to give the show credit because to make up for that, they make it so Jesus isn't really a protagonist in the series. The events aren't told from his perspective, but rather that of the disciples, which shouldn't come as a surprise since they're the chosen that the title refers to. In fact, there are long stretches of the show where you don't see Jesus and it's just focused on them. But I don't mind because they're all interesting, fleshed out characters in their own right. Arguably more so than Jesus because they're allowed to be human and flawed. Standouts include Matthew, who I talked about earlier. Also Thomas, who has the most like character actor face, if that makes sense. Like he looks a little out of place in what is supposed to be ancient times, but I could totally see him as an SNL cast member. It's Saturday Night Live, starring Pete Davidson and Thomas the Apostle. Was that funny? I honestly cannot tell. Let's hope. Or pray. Another standout among the disciples is actually Judas, who so far has been nothing but the nicest guy. So it's really conflicting to watch knowing he's ultimately gonna betray Jesus. It kind of feels like watching the Star Wars prequels. Like you know how things are gonna end up for these characters, but they don't. Actually, when I was watching the episode where his identity was revealed, I audibly gasped.
So, I'm Judas of Keriot.
Judas! That was the moment that I realized, god damn it, I actually think I'm kind of into this show. My favorite of the disciples though, probably because they're the ones with the most screen time, are Simon and Andrew.
I met a guy.
Oh, really? Wow! Get the papyrus! Simon met a guy!
They're just likable and well performed and written. Simon probably has the best character arcs with his faith still being tested 3 seasons in. Also, one thing about Andrew's actor. So they post a lot of behind the scenes videos for this series, and in one of them where all the actors are playing Super Smash Brothers between shooting, Andrew's actor, Noah James, turns out to be like a Smash expert.
My Smash Brothers character is Greninja, but I also play Jigglypuff, I play Pikachu, I play Pokemon Trainer.
And then the creator of the series, Dallas Jenkins, like makes fun of him for being a nerd.
So, to translate for you, that's nerd, Star Trek.
Jigglypuff is so condescending. Yeah.
You cannot make fun of him when you created a show about the life of Jesus. That's like peak nerdy. Also, why'd you mention Star Trek?
Nerd, Star Trek.
He wasn't talking about Star Trek. Like, what? But in my opinion, the most impressive thing about this show is that it presents the Gospels in a way that I find kind of cool, or at least interesting. Like, I've always been of the opinion that the story of Jesus was kind of boring, even when compared to other ancient myths, or even when compared to other stories in the Bible, honestly. And The Chosen made me realize that's probably because previous adaptations of the Gospels have never really showcased what I found interesting about this story. I didn't bring water, but I'm gonna power through this. Honestly, sometimes this show just feels like watching Selma or Malcolm X or something, as we watch a charismatic speaker spreading a message of peace and gain a following over time. It also kind of reminds me of another franchise I feel guilty having ever enjoyed. I mean, it's a guy with magical powers who's the prophesized chosen one, and his loyal followers are a cast of colorful characters whom he at some point passes his wisdom on to. It's a shame both stories are tied to the oppression of actual people in the real world. We really can't have anything. So yeah, I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I think I'm a fan of this show. I can't wait for future seasons, and I highly recommend it. The app that it streams on is free, so you don't need to worry about contributing to any problematic institutions by watching it. This isn't like eating eating at Chick-fil-A or anything. Now, I know a lot of Christians might hear that I enjoyed this show and think, we got him on the hook, fellas, now we just need to reel him in. And because of engagement, I'll say those people can feel free to comment and try and save me. I'm telling you right now, I'm not gonna become a Christian because of this show. I like smoking weed and being friends with lesbians too much, and I also don't vibe more with Christianity than I do any other religion. But still, I have to give credit where it's due. This show proved to me that media can be made by Christians about Christianity and still be entertaining when there's actual talented people behind it. But it's still not my favorite piece of Christian media, because Narnia exists. Sorry, The Chosen, maybe you'd have a better shot if you made Jesus into a lion voiced by Liam Neeson before he was racist and had James McAvoy with goat legs. Okay, I'm gonna go sin, so bye.